Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. Tonight, the Talk of the Town team is back in full with Lynn Skirpon returning from a Caribbean vacation, and she's here now. And as you know, she's still the best lawyer in the region when it comes through probate and wills, and the comptroller needs her for the advice that she gives to him. And she's a trustee at the community college, which she says is really the Harvard of Maryland. Lynn Lucci, the president of the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, and also represents the city of Bowie in one of the really tough jobs and posts. The city of Bowie has Lynn watching the lobbyists and watching the legislature, making sure they only do things that either do not bother the city of Bowie or they do good things for the city of Bowie. And we owe all that to the mayor. Mayor Robinson is here again, and Mayor Robinson is going to be around at least for another 2 years because no one filed against him. And I think that was due to the fact that the mayor's been doing an excellent job. So Talk of the Town is here in full, and I thought we'd open up with Len is just back from the special session, and maybe he can enlighten us in what went on in terms of redistricting at all. Len.
Well, it was a very emotional hearing on Monday in Annapolis because you had friends against friends. And the question was the governor's redistricting plan for the 8 members of Congress in compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act? That was the main question. And you had the panel of the mayor of Baltimore and the Prince George's County executive and the Montgomery County executive all in unison saying that it's a great plan and it maximizes African American voter participation and representation. Then you had coming after them Congresswoman Donna Edwards, as well as the president and the vice president of the Montgomery County Council, saying the plan does not. Because it dilutes the 2 African-American districts somewhat, having them be less African-American, and then there should be a third one that did not exist. And so the response to that was, in fact, that there's a third, what they call an opportunity district, meaning over the next decade, Congressman Hoyer's district will become primarily African-American. So it was a very heated debate, but it was a heated debate among African-American elected officials about what was best for the community and best for the state of Maryland. So it was a very interesting debate, and it went on for hours. Afterwards, the Senate of Maryland voted to support the governor's plan. We did that both last night and this morning, and the House is expected to follow suit later today and tomorrow. So that's just Chapter 1 of redistricting in the State House. Chapter 2 comes in January when the governor submits his plan for state legislative redistricting. And that's a little bit different. The General Assembly has 45 days to approve that, and if they don't, then it becomes the law. So, this is a topic that most people in the public really could care less about, but these folks in elective office care passionately about it. And years ago, it used to be you would have pieces of paper on the floor and scratch pads and calculators. Now anybody can figure this out on their iPhone.
Yeah, a little app.
And so everyone's into the act, and it was an amazing thing to watch.
Yeah, good.
Lynn, any comments on what is going on in Annapolis?
Well, I have an interesting perspective on it because I happen to be in the Donna Edwards district. And she really broke with the leadership. She criticized the governor. She broke with Steny Hoyer, who has been very supportive of her through bringing her up through Congress. And I think she kind of she did go out on a limb and had a lot of people that went with her. And she has been criticized for, much of the criticism is directed. They think that she's trying to protect her own district. I think she would have been safe. I think she will be safe in the governor's plan. She'd be safe in her plan. I don't think it was so much that, but she was also concerned not just about the African American population, but she's very concerned about the, or she says she's very concerned about the other minorities, the Hispanic population, and she wanted to protect that piece of her district. So I think it's going to be interesting if she has repercussions.
Oh, there will be. I'm sorry.
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
Because she was cross-examined about, she submitted her own plan, and her own plan did nothing to increase Latino representation, and it chopped up Montgomery into 4 districts instead of 3. And so the Montgomery people who were on the committee were jumping on her saying, how is your plan better except for you? And everyone said, it's all about you, isn't it? And so it got a little bit personal.
Yeah.
What about?
I thought one of the
Fred,
criticisms.
before, let me, and you can probably go there. In reading about it, and I have no real knowledge of it, it seemed that she was concerned about losing a portion of Montgomery County where she got personnel money.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's my understanding that one of the criticisms that I guess that motivated her, that may not have been articulated today, was that one of the communities that she would lose from her district is some rather wealthy, strong Democrat voting districts that make a lot of financial contributions to their congresspeople. So it may well be that losing that fundraising capacity might also have motivated her position. But I agree with Lynn. I think she did go out on that limb, and I think she did, quite frankly, open herself up to some criticism about trying to forge a plan that was for her, by her, and affected her, possibly even to the detriment of some of the other communities. So Len might be right. I think there may well be some repercussions.
I think somebody will jump into this race and run against her the next time. And I don't know if that's what motivated her, that she feared that, but if nobody was going to do it then, I think she's made herself more vulnerable now because she has taken on the governor, she's taken on Steny, and if anybody was thinking about it, I think they're going to be ready to jump.
And with half her territory being new, it's a great opportunity to do that. Filing deadline, by the way, for anybody out there is January 11th, and the primary is April 3rd, so it's pretty much right upon us.
Well, you live in her district.
I do live in her
Yeah,
district.
okay. Well, after the show,
Or
we'll have a
maybe
conversation.
she lives in my district.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
We'll have a
who knows?
conversation. But I'm impressed that so far that the legislature has moved on this as quickly as they have. The fun part is going to come in January, though, when they start redistricting their own neighborhoods. And unfortunately, I think you're going to see a resurfacing of the same kind of thing we saw, with the Edwards approach, when senators and delegates decide to carve out their own self-serving neighborhoods and districts. And I've seen some ideas where it gives a whole new dimension to the word gerrymandering. So it's going to be fun watching the session, because also in the session they're going to be looking at things like gasoline taxes and other kinds of tax increases and budget cuts and whatever. So I think the mix for the January session has a lot of potential, for some explosions up there.
That's why I go back year after year.
Yeah. Well, God bless you. I'm glad it's you instead of me.
What about, I don't want to jump immediately to the national level, but I'd like to know your opinion of Mr. Kaine, the one who's tied actually for the Republican leadership role in the presidential contest. What comments you might have about him, and then also about the Occupy Wall Street people. According to Fred earlier, he said that those people are up in New York and on the private property of people and causing unrest. And you also suggested that the Tea Party people were stealing their iPads. Is that true?
No. I said that there were reports today that a lot of the folks were making police reports that the anti-capitalist, anti-American members of the group were following this because some nefarious person or persons have gone through have been stealing their iPads and their iPhones and all those evil accoutrements projected from the capitalist society. But that, that's an interesting time up there. All I would do is I would suggest that prominent elected officials be a little cautious in before they jump into that mix up there, because I see it as a little different. If you look at the Tea Party, if I love them or hate them, you understand where they are. With this group, depending on who gets interviewed, I'm not really sure what their underlying message is or what.
It's interesting though that the
I did hear one thing, that they did want forgiveness of all student loans.
Oh, that's true.
And that only amounts to about $1 trillion, so I'm sure that'll have no effect on the national debt
Well,
either.
if the banks open up their $4 trillion treasury that they are hiding away from the interests of the community, that would be great.
You could probably get a front row seat up there.
I probably could, but whether or not I would want one, that's the other question. However, when if I go back to Mr. Kane, the Godfather pizza guy, I saw him the other night singing. He's got a great voice, and he really does have an interesting personality. But is there any real depth to the guy in terms of, I see where Mitt Romney has all the money in the world, not as much as President Obama, but he has a lot. And this guy is struggling to raise a couple of $1 million. Is he legitimate? And how is he sitting there? Only they're in a dead. He's in a tie with Romney. How does that happen? What's going on?
His success just shows how pathetic the Republican field is. He is the equivalent of none of the above, but he's very articulate at being none of the above.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he'll be there at the end of the process or not, but I think what's driving the interest is he's put a plan on the table that's easily understood. Whether it works or not is very debatable. But his argument, the 999 plan, that it reduces everybody's income tax liability to 9%, a 9% sales tax, and a 9%. The interesting thing is a lot of the most hardcore right-wing people are really taking on the 9-cent sales tax now, saying that nobody likes the idea of opening up the opportunity for a federal sales tax.
Regressive sales tax on the poor people.
But you know what?
9%.
His plan would be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of this nation.
Yeah, but I told somebody today at lunch, I said, if you remember the 999 plan of Kane, if you remember the fundamental Reagan plan in 1980 was 10-10-10. 10% reduction in taxes, 10% reduction in taxes, 10%. It turned out to be a 5-10-10.
Yeah.
But
And turned to be tax increase by the time he was out of office.
Yeah, but I think the average taxpayer that knows that they spend hundreds or thousands of dollars a year with an accountant to work their taxes out understands that it's easy to figure out the 999. If I'm a corporation, I pay 9%. If I'm not a corporation, I'm only interested in the other two. And but my question is, what happens? Because this also eliminates the FICA taxes. And my question is, what happens to the collected liabilities to Social Security? I mean, is that going to become paid out of general revenue? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lynn?
I mean, I think
Is he a player or not?
I don't think so long term. He's just the current front runner. I think the other appealing thing about him, though, is that he is not a career politician. So that those people that are, tired of the status quo and what's going on right now, they've got a group of governors and senators and, running, and he's a pizza magnate.
He's the flavor of the month.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? They went through Bachmann and then Perry and then him. Then they're out of flavors, and they have vanilla, which is Romney.
But don't forget, I mean, the guy is a very bright guy. He's got a good track record in business, in the business world, and turning companies around. And people forget he was chairman of the Federal Reserve in Kansas City for 6 or 8 years. So he knows the economy, and he knows if he's got a fundamental weakness, and he's already demonstrated his lack of foreign affairs information and that sort of stuff. But I think he has a pretty good grasp of the economy. He's a great speaker, and he's putting out a platform that people like. But
that's smart.
But if you look at the fact, I mean, he's got about $1.5 million in the bank, has no infrastructure in Iowa, none in New Hampshire, and while the rest of the people are up there, he's in Tennessee selling books. So the question I have is, where do you go without an infrastructure in a place like Iowa, for example, where you got to move people in at midnight to go to a caucus.
I think the only way he succeeds, and I don't think he really does it, but the only way is to galvanize, the social media groups and do this, never before seen grassroots presidential campaign and get all the young people, which I don't think he can, to come out in the way they are doing this Occupy New York thing. I don't think it can happen. I think that's his only chance.
When he
Best
says
way it can
things
happen
like,
is with free pizza. Then it can happen.
yes, when he says, well, he got a great voice. I told him singing, a song way back when he was president, acting president.
He's got an album out of gospel music.
Yeah, but I wonder then is the guy that gets up and says, the fence will be 20 feet high. It'll have barbed wire over it. On the other side of the fence, it'll say this. It'll be electrified. This could kill you. And he said it'll be in English and in Spanish. Later on, he's talking on one of the talk shows on Sunday, and he said, "Oh, I was only
was a joke.
joking.
Right.
That was a joke. It was supposed to be
But then I heard later
funny."
today that he was saying, "No, I stand by those comments." So I don't know which one where the sequence is.
I kind of agree. I think he's really out of it. It looks to me like it's whether the Republican right likes it or not. It looks to me like it's Romney.
I think so.
And I think that it's Romney and Obama. And Obama is taking it to the streets in terms of his jobs. And when he breaks it down, they are now running on television a bottom line where it says Senator so-and-so voted against so many jobs in his state. And they're doing that constantly. If you're watching a show, and it's on the bottom, and I don't see how the Republicans can
You've
turn
already seen
that
it.
thing around.
If you see the ads today that the Republicans, they're putting out things, and the bottom line is, in Michigan, of the $3 billion that they got in education, $1.2 million went to buy iPads for teachers and went to buy this and went to buy this. So both sides are just attacking the intellectual honesty of the other side. But the problem is, it's great to run against Congress, but the reality is he's got to be prepared for a tough fight with. I agree with you too. I think it's going to be Romney.
Okay, it's October, middle of October. I predict it's going to be Rick Perry.
No,
Ooh.
I predict it's going to be.
We'll come back and see, but I predict it's going to be Rick Perry.
I think
I'll
Rick
tell
Perry
you why
hurt
he's
himself
going out, but-
very badly.
I certainly want you think the Tea Party will move that strong.
It's early, believe it or not. They don't vote till January.
Sure.
He's got more money in the bank than Romney does. And this Republican right base is not going to support someone who does not believe that Jesus Christ is the Savior. Bottom line.
Yeah.
religious
Well, I'm not so sure.
And
but,
you're not going to
yeah.
support someone who supports health care for everybody. They're against that.
The
Yeah.
Massachusetts gender.
You may well be right, but if you look at the money that Perry's raised, about 90% of it comes from Texas. He hasn't been able to spread out, on a national level. He's got a ton of money, but a lot of that money is now going to tap out most of those contributors who won't be able to make legal contributions anymore. I understand where you're going, but I think the thing that hurt him too was his position on illegal immigration and the same thing they're doing in Maryland with the DREAM Act and stuff like that. Because I think conservatives are going to sit there and say, which one of these guys has the best chance of winning? And I think what they're going to do, somebody's going to hold their nose and support Perry, or they're going to hold their nose and support Romney. My gut right now is I think they're going to sit back and say, we think Romney's got a better chance of winning. I think Romney's got such a better chance of being close to par with the president when it comes to debates and stuff. I think if you put Perry and Obama in a debate, Perry's going to get crushed. And I don't
2012
think
is going to be a repeat of 2004, but flipped around. 2004 was the first time that an incumbent ran for re-election, not saying, look what I did for you, but the other guy's worse than I am. You can't trust him. He's undependable. I know you don't like me, is what Bush said, but carry flip-flops.
Yeah.
You're going to have the same thing now. On YouTube, you can see right now, Romney's for abortion rights, he's against abortion rights. He's for marriage equality, he's against marriage equality. He's for immigration, he's against immigration. He's for health care, he's against health care. They're going to kill him on that in the general election, and that's
no
how
question.
Obama's going to win.
Yeah. But at the same time, Romney's going to be, and I don't want to sound like I'm Romney's cheerleader, but the reality is he's going to come back and argue that You know, it's all well and good to talk about these social issues. Fundamental issues, the economy and jobs. And he's going to ask the Reagan question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And the president has already answered that. He said that we're not.
Right.
So, you know, you can see what both parties are going to do. I mean, you don't have your rocket scientists to figure out the two strategies. And it's going to be a question of if, in fact, the economy and jobs are the critical issue, whoever makes the argument on that one, I think, is the one that's going to win.
I don't know. We were worse off in 2004, but because he scared everybody about Kerry, Bush was reelected. And you can talk about Romney's experience with jobs and the economy. He was head of Bain Capital. He'd buy up companies, sell them off, and people would lose their jobs.
Did you see
It would
Romney?
eliminate jobs.
Did you see Romney's new website where he attacks Perry? You know, he says, Perry, you have the highest unemployment rate in the state of Texas now. It's twice what it was when you came in, and half of the jobs that you claim are now being held by illegal aliens.
Great picture of Romney, though, with money stuffed into his jacket. And
Oh, the
he's
caption, I'm in the top 10 of the 13
Exactly.
candidates.
And of course, when you think about it, Romney has certainly, he's easy to hit. For example, he made his money taking over companies, firing people, and then increasing the income for the corporate
For the
heavies.
stockholders, the people who own the company.
The heavies.
I mean,
Same thing
that's what
Kane
his
did
job
with
is.
Godfather's Pizza.
You got it. Only he's got a great singing voice. And he also said if there were no more pizzas, he'd have to eat tacos and burgers. And he said they're not really his
They're
thing.
not good for you.
That's right.
He's the only person on that dais with a personality.
Oh,
Yeah, and
Great
I think that's part of
personality.
the, you know, one of the things we didn't talk about, why is he attractive? 'Cause I think he's easy to like.
yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
and I think he comes across,
And
as the kind of, you'd like to have him here, have a beer with him.
He has that compelling
Yeah.
surviving cancer story.
And a
Oh,
strong
yes.
personal.
He
I mean,
really does.
Said he grew up in a very poor neighborhood. His father had 3 jobs. His mother was a maid, and he worked his way through. And he does this comparison. You know, there's some people in the world to whom many things are given, and the rest of us have to earn it. And that too is a compelling
He
argument.
says he does have a personality that's very attractive, but he says things like, so you don't have a job and you're not doing well. You have only one person to blame. Blame yourself.
You're lazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, whoa, that's kind of heavy at a national level running for president. That's why I say, and I think we're generally in agreement, that he folds. And when he folds, when you look at Perry, where he sits now, Perry's at 13%. Romney is still in the 25% or around
The two of them are like at 27, 28
Yeah,
today.
they're up there in the same place
You know,
he's been
but
all along.
don't forget the wild card here. Gingrich is now pulling into quietly moving up. He's like up into 13 or 14% now.
Well, if he can hock all the jewels his wife has from Tiffany.
But the
he'd be
problem,
doing
none of
well.
those guys have been able to put together the money and organizations. Romney's got the best organization. He's got the most money, and he's got a broad base of the money. He's gotten a ton of money this week from Wall Street. Of course, he doesn't have as much from Wall Street as the president did, but it's, you know, I just, maybe you're right, you know, and maybe, you know a lot more about some of these things than do I, but my gut just tells me it's going to be Romney, and then the big question will be, who does he pick as a running mate? Does he pick someone like Rubio from Florida? Does he pick, you know, somebody like Christie from New Jersey? Does he pick your friend Sarah Palin from Alaska?
He's got to really be careful because I see that they're working now to
Or what's her name from Minnesota?
Bachmann.
Bachmann, yeah.
But they're working
Romney
out.
Bachmann.
She's running again, as we know. But they're working to recall Walker, the governor
Scott
of
Walker.
Wisconsin, and they should have nailed him early on anyway, because he was not against the labor unions per se. He was for and against collective bargaining, and I'm thinking, what is this?
But
guy
understand,
doing?
yeah, I
rid
understand
of him.
clearly what was going on. I mean, there was an attempt there to recall 6 or 8 Republican senators, and they recalled 2. And the Republicans recalled, I think, 1 of the 2 or 3 Republican or Democrats. But understand, there's only been two governors, I think, recalled in the history of the United States. One was the California guy Gray, and then there was one back in the 1880s. I mean, it is not an
Oh, I
easy
know.
thing to do.
They ought to recall the guy in Florida also, but that's only my opinion. It's a difficult thing when you look at it because from where I'm looking now, I see the President Obama, running against Congress and winning that whole thing on jobs because, you know, when he's going around the country. He went to Cantor Country in Virginia, and he really ripped Cantor, big one. And that's the kind of guy that I think is really useless.
But the
Pretends to
problem,
be
the problem he has
knowledgeable,
to
but
face
isn't.
is, in the last election, he won Virginia with like 56% of the vote. And right now, his job approval rating in Virginia is in the low 40s. He won
Tough
North
state
Carolina
for
by
him, Virginia.
14,000 votes. And right now, his approval rating in North Carolina is in the 40s.
His approval rating is low. When you pair him against, say, are you going to vote for Obama or a Republican, he loses. But in the South,
Oh, you do them one-on-one, then they're very competitive.
he's beating them in the South.
Yeah.
He's beating
But
Romney
go
in the
back to
South.
your original poll. One of the poll people has, in that Obama Kane race, has Kane up by 2%. Now,
Like he could lose. The strategy is Obama could lose Ohio.
no, he can't.
Well, he could lose Ohio if he wins North Carolina.
No, he
and
won
if
North Carolina
wins
and Virginia last time.
But if he win
Florida.
them again, he could certainly counter on the Ohio thing. I think he's going to win Ohio. I think he's going to win Pennsylvania. I think he's going to win Michigan. And I think it's basically over. If it's Romney, he wins
Anybody got a pencil?
tight. But if it's Perry, I think he walks away win.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I think he'll crush Perry. I think is the biggest competitor, and that you can see all the people around him are now shifting their focus. The attacks are all coming out against Romney. But I think in all fairness, I think the president has to hold every state that he won last time, because I don't know how many McCain states he can plan to win this time around. And right now, he's going to be spending resources and time in Pennsylvania, the state that Democrats have won for the last, 5 or 6 elections. Sure. And I'm not so sure about, he should win North Carolina, but he may not. Virginia has always traditionally gone Republican until last time they elected a Democrat was John Kennedy. You know, that other senator that ran, I think he made a pretty good president for a while.
And because of the census shift, there has been a shift. There'll be like a 10 or so votes. I mean, so it's going to be more. It's going to be harder because of the electoral college.
Exactly. New York is losing numbers.
We only have a minute. We have to go wrapping it up. And I always laugh when we get to this point because I watched Chris Matthews the other day, and he always asks the people that are, tell me something I don't know. And I was thinking, if I asked the three of you to tell me something I didn't know, that would take us hours.
Take a week.
At least hours, I say. So that isn't
Like
really.
you know everything.
Well, that is
You just
really,
pretend you don't know.
That isn't really.
All right, I'll tell you
I
what.
was
I'll tell
interested
you.
in.
We have a wager here. He thinks Perry's going to win the nomination, and I think it's going to be Romney.
What about you?
I think it's Romney.
I think it's Romney also.
So you're in out.
I'm going to get 3 dinners come March or February.
Or you buy 3 dinners.
Okay. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you again early next month, and we certainly appreciate you watching us. And if you want to get in touch with anyone here on the panel, just write to the Bowie Cable group, and they will get the information, the question to us. Good night and good luck.